Well, welcome back, ink drinkers. This is episode 2 for Enchanted Greenhouse. Today we will be diving into chapters 13 through 23 of this cozy fantasy. Last episode, we left Terlu with the big mission to break Lakin's code. They had been able to find the code book in the center of the maze with some ambitious help from Lottie. Ambitious or reckless?
Yeah.
And we've got Grumpy Yarrow as our gardener assisting along the way.
So when we jump back in with Terlu, she is busy trying to crack this code so that they have what they need to figure out the spells to hopefully invigorate and fix the dead greenhouses, or at the very least stop them from failing.
Yeah.
And Yarrow, who seems to be a master cook and baker, brings her some hot chocolates while she's working through everything. But as she's reading through the notes, it sounds like Lakin, the sorcerer, was actually trying to get the sentient plants to go dormant.
Mm-hmm.
And this news isn't taken well by Lottie, the resurrection rose. She feels so betrayed, and she doesn't really want to believe that he would let them go dormant and that was his intention. She wants to believe the best in him, which is so, like, it's heartbreaking because you can tell how much she cared about him and how much um she, like, just idolized him. And it really does sound like he was trying to put them to sleep. And we aren't sure what the intention was behind that.
Yeah, we still don't know what brought about this kind of like paranoid change in Lakin, like what his whole purpose was behind creating the plant's, dormancy, or trying to, I don't know, did he intentionally, want to break down the greenhouses? All these different things. Like, is it because he died that the greenhouses, like, I've got so many questions over this. Like, is it because he died and now, his spells are slowly fading? Is it something to do with the breakdown of ingredients? Is it because, spell work needs to be rejuvenated over time? Like, there's so many questions. And poor Terlu is, going through coded messages to figure it out. This moment with Lottie too was really heartbreaking for me, because she was like, you wouldn't understand what it feels like to be, be put to sleep and everything. But then she like catches herself, because she does realize, wait, Terlu was a statue. So like the connection the two of them can make between that like quiet singular sense, that one really, really got me.
Yeah, Terlu can actually empathize with these sentient plants who were put to sleep against their will, because of her, what they call her statue phase,
Yeah.
which I thought was funny. So, but we can see, like, Terlu's confidence waver here. She's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm reading this correctly, and I don't know if I should try this. Because she comes up with a spell that she's like, I think I have it decoded. And she asks Yarrow if he thinks he can get the ingredients, which of course he's gonna have the ingredients.
Yes.
But she then is like hesitant. She's like, okay, I'll try it, but like I don't know what's gonna happen. And while, like, the ingredients are gathered and stuff, she kind of talks about a little bit about her theories about the reason for the greenhouses failing. Like, it could be the ingredients, it could be all of those things that you just mentioned, and like the reason for his paranoia. So it's not just her like reading his journals to try to figure out the spells, but also kind of getting an idea for his state of mind.
Yeah. And we do find out how he passed away, because I was like trying to figure out, I was like, did old age finally catch up to him? Did he get sick? And actually he fell down the stairs and broke his neck. So it was like tragically accidental. And Yarrow talked about how like his spirit lingered for a little while
Mm-hmm.
and used to like hover over his dad because his dad was still there for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and like kind of not really like bicker, but like you could just feel the intensity of it because he wanted to make sure certain plants were cared for the right way. And I was like, of course he did.
Mm-hmm.
A lingering spirit.
And then Yarrow actually points out and tries to like build Terlu's confidence by saying that she's a
Mm,
self-taught sorcerer.
yeah.
And so he's, you may not be a traditional sorcerer or like taught at university or whatever, but you're figuring it out
Mm-hmm.
and you obviously have conducted successful spells. That's what got her statuified in the first place,
Yes.
but you're a self-taught sorcerer. So they happen over to the sentient plant
Yes.
greenhouse to try to wake these plants
Mm-hmm.
because that's the first spell. Sorry, I misspoke. It wasn't to save the greenhouses, it was to try to wake the plants. And so they go over and Terlu's like, pick one.
Yeah.
Pick a friend to wake up. And Lottie trying to pick a friend is so funny. And she's
Yes.
like, definitely not you. And she ends up picking a philodendron. And she's like, okay, let's try to bury the ingredients
Mm-hmm.
in his roots. And as they're doing this, they kind of have this little conversation about winter solstice
Yeah.
and how it's like a big deal. It was a big deal for
Mm-hmm.
her growing up, and it's coming up. And she says that Yarrow should invite his family
Mm-hmm.
for winter solstice to for them to have a visit. And we don't really know a ton
Mm-hmm.
about how
Mm-hmm.
strained things are between them. We just kind of feel like it's something he doesn't like to talk
Yeah.
about. Um, but also Lottie is very inquisitive and she
Mm-hmm.
wants them to teach her how to water herself so that she doesn't have to depend on anybody.
That also broke my heart. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, she doesn't want to have to like worry about going dormant again because there was
Mhm.
a lack of somebody there to take care of her. And Terry Lou was like, well, we'll put a rope, like we'll tie a rope to the water spigot so that you can always pull it and you don't have to worry about somebody else.
Mhm.
And I was just like, oh,
Yeah, or
poor sweet thing.
actively choosing not to water her.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can't figure out how to do it yourself, like that's
Yeah.
putting your sanity, your life in somebody else's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Um
But her spell ends up working,
yes.
but she didn't think so at first because she's staring at this philodendron and nothing happens. And then a plant down yonder flew over.
An orchid across the room yawns.
Yep. So, yay, the spell worked. But her intention was to wake up one, and she woke them all up.
And she like quickly realizes
Mm-hmm.
why, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because they left the other ingredients open to the air and didn't put them away, and so all of them were basically
Yep.
activated, and that woke up all the plants.
Yeah.
And the philodendron specifically like has this very yawning
Yes.
voice, and he wakes up and says, "Not dead. That's nice." And I just cackled at that. I thought that was so funny. And but all of the other plants don't seem to be excited to see Lottie at all.
No.
They're
It's
like,
like
she doesn't remember.
yeah, it's like a small angry mob. Like if they had like pitchforks and torches, I'd be a little
Hmm.
worried.
And we're like, what did Lottie do?
Yeah. And so they're kind of, it's almost like bickering. They're like kind of like
Hmm.
yelling and bickering at each other, but mostly at Lottie. And we kind of find out that Lottie was sadly used
Hmm.
against them to convince them to allow Lakin to use the spell on them to put them to sleep. Um,
Hmm.
and poor Lottie has no memory of this.
Hmm.
Her memory lapses every time she, goes dormant. She forgets a lot of what had happened previously. And so, she was told by Lakin, and then she,
Hmm.
passed the message on that the spell that was being cast on them was going to be for their own good. And the plants are terrified that Lakin will still be there. They don't know he's dead
Hmm.
yet. they're finding out very quickly. But they're terrified that they're going to be put back to sleep.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of animosity at first towards Lottie from all these other plants.
One thing I really enjoyed about this particular part of the book is this, this particular part of the audiobook is how each plant has a very
Mhm.
different like distinct voice, and there are different characteristics that seem to be aligned with the plant that they are.
Mhm.
um, there's a ivy
Mhm.
that sounds has very long like S sounds and
Yeah.
sounds snaky. And they talk about her vines like moving in a very snake like manner. And
Mhm.
that, like, if you're not reading the audiobook, I feel like that's something that it really adds. If you
Yeah.
like go in, get it on Libby or whatever, and take a listen, it really added to like being immersed in it, I felt
Mhm.
like, and really gave each plant their own character and
Yeah.
personality. And I was able to distinguish the different plants, which was
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah, I loved that part too. So Terlu and Yarrow are a little worried about leaving the sentient plants kind of by
Mhm.
themselves or whatever. Um, they're nervous about, will the spell continue to last, all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. Um, and the plants also do learn in their conversation that Lakin's not there. They're very relieved that they're not
Mhm.
going to be put to sleep again. They're thankful towards Terlu for waking them up. And Lottie volunteers to stay in the greenhouse overnight with them, almost like a way of like penance, like
Mhm.
I need to do this. So Yarrow and Terelu start making their way back to his cottage. And I felt so bad for Yarrow in this moment because you can tell that he's got some like pent up frustration towards Lakin
Mhm.
because he seems very upset with the choices that Lakin made
Yeah.
over putting those plants to sleep. Like,
Against their will.
yeah. He sees it as it was Lakin's job to protect the greenhouses, to make sure that,
Mhm.
the environments were sustainable, that the plants, especially these sentient ones, had choices. Choices seem to be a very big thing to him. And so you see him kind of balancing this. I'm upset with him,
Mhm.
but I also feel guilty for being upset with him because he was my mentor and he's passed. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, let's be honest, that's part of grief, right? Is balancing
Mhm.
all sorts of different emotions. Um, and so I love that you get to see this interaction and Tierlu kind of being like just a listener, right? Like
Mhm.
knowing that he needs the time and the space to slowly get that out. And in this kind of conversation, she kind of offers like, hey, like this worked, like maybe I could help with the greenhouses a little bit. I can't guarantee
Mhm.
anything, like I'm not making any big promises,
Mhm.
but like I could keep looking through his stuff and see what else I could find. And that kind of brings a new spark to Yarrow, like a little ray of hope.
Mhm. And also, they woke up all these sentient plants,
Mhm.
and though they can be a good potential information source
Mhm.
for her. They obviously were created by Lakin, and we know that Lottie has some information, so we just obviously met them. We
Yeah.
don't know what they know. Also, during their walk to the cabin, when or the cottage, when Yarrow is talking about these
Mhm.
things, something that Terlu seems to do is she starts pushing about his family
Mhm.
and asking more questions, and like, why did everybody leave? Because he talks about how Lakin pushed people
Yeah.
away, and he got kind of, I don't know if I would call it sick, but obviously we know he was paranoid. But then she starts pushing on his family, and that kind of, he's like not happy about it. So then when she's like, well, maybe I can help, that kind of like brightens
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
information or the conversation back up.
Yeah. She does also mention, because you said paranoid, but maybe he wasn't well. She brought
Yeah.
up that
Mhm.
maybe he wasn't well
Mhm.
to Yarrow in this conversation. She kind of relates to him and says, I had this friend, Odal.
Yeah.
oh, I think it was Odal, where, she was constantly uh, inviting me to do things, going on these daring, kind of adventurous, like scrapes. And she was really doing those things to get the attention of her parents because her
Yeah.
parents were very absent from her life. They were very busy in
Mhm.
their jobs, and the last little escapade that they went on, her family, Terlu's family, was like, yeah, without an adult or some other supervision, like you really can't do things with her. Like they got stranded out in a storm.
Yeah, it was like almost like a drowning situation.
And so, they kind of put their foot down for the safety of their own child. And when that happened, she immediately attached to a new kid and kind of did the same things.
Mhm.
And so here she was relating with Yarrow and said, sometimes people are going through things that you can't see because you're too busy looking up to them. And she
Mhm.
kind of idolized Odal the way that
Mhm.
Yarrow idolized Lakin. So
Yeah.
trying to subtly get the wheels turning,
Yeah.
but giving Yarrow the space to talk about it when he was ready to. She's quite intuitive, I do believe.
Mhm. And you can see why she would have made a great outward facing librarian to like
Hmm.
help others.
Yeah. So the next day we see them travel back towards the greenhouses, and poor Yarrow is putzing
Mhm.
uh through like little, like he'd get a little bit closer to the sentient plant greenhouse and be like, oh, but I need to do this first. And then you get a little closer,
Mhm.
oh, I need to do this first. And she's like, are you avoiding going
Mhm.
there? He was nervous, poor dude.
Mhm.
But when he shows up, all of the plants are in a much happier state.
And they're being nice to Lottie.
Yay.
Lottie isn't hiding anything from the other plants.
Yeah.
Like she's very upfront about what's going on and who Yarrow and Terlu are. And we see another confidence boosting moment from Yarrow here in like
Hmm.
how he's talking about Terlu to the plants and calling her strong while she's saying, I don't know, I can't do this. I'm not
Hmm.
that good. I don't know what I'm doing. Which is what she needs
Hmm.
to really like have that growth that to eventually hopefully save these greenhouses
Yeah.
or figure out what's going wrong. But when they walk into, the plants are like imitating human dancing, which is it's such a funny moment. And each one of them's like, no, they dance like this. And you can tell already that these plants are very supportive of each other
Hmm.
and that they're like very community based.
Hmm.
But they're also very needy.
Very.
They're like, we need this, let's do this. And it's almost overwhelming, I think, for Yarrow because
Hmm.
he's used to being alone.
Yes, he is used to being alone. Um, they do also ask the plants if anybody might have some knowledge about Lakin, if anybody was around, had seen, had spent time outside of the greenhouse with
Mm-hmm.
him. And Dendy, the philodendron, was like, well, he, before Lottie, like he used to take me out places. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen, him do some of the spell work. But then eventually he got tired of my opinions. And
Yeah.
so, I was kind of put back into the greenhouse. Um, and while Yarrow was kind of boosting Terlu's confidence, I can't remember if it was Dendy or Lottie, but they were like, okay, stop being so mushy or whatever. Oh, no, it's Dendy because I remember now. Sorry. So Dendy and Terlu are like talking about how he might be able to help go through and like maybe find journals or whatever. And Terlu starts asking questions about Yarrow, like what kind of
Oh
person is
yeah.
he, and um, has he always been this quiet? What does he like? And Dundee goes, curious humans usually end up married.
Yeah.
And, he says it in
Mm-hmm.
his long, drawn out voice. But Dundee ends up being a pretty big plethora of knowledge about
Yeah.
Lakin. And we
Mm-hmm.
get a little bit of a sad backstory.
Yeah, we learn really why he built the greenhouses. And something that we didn't know until now is that he had a daughter,
Hmm.
and the daughter got sick. And so he and she always wanted to travel. Like she wanted to
Mhm.
go see different places. And so he built all of these different greenhouses to give her different experiences from around the world because
Mhm.
he didn't want her to travel because she was sick. He wanted her to
Mhm.
stay on Beld. And eventually she actually ran away.
Mhm.
And he, it's kind of alluded to, or they kind of talk about, they think he blamed the gardeners
Yeah.
for not stopping her or encouraging her to go. And while she was gone, she died. And it was after that that really he started to push people away and send the gardeners away. And that is so heartbreaking. Like he put all of this work into, we've seen, the sky with the dragon maze, like this, it's
Mhm.
an aurora, or different rooms, different greenhouses with all of these different atmospheres, and he built them just for her. And then not only did she run away, so they probably split on bad terms, but then she passed while she was gone.
I just can't even imagine getting that news as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of wonder if his grief is what started leading into his paranoia and his deterioration over,
Mm-hmm.
the greenhouses themselves.
Well, and if he blamed the gardeners, that's
Mhm.
why he's pushing them all away and,
Yeah.
trying to isolate himself. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So after she's spent some time with Dendy, he's helped identify some of the notebooks that he saw Lakin spending a lot of time in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's where she's going to focus some more of her, code breaking within. She makes her way back to Yarrow's cottage for the evening. No, she does not. Yarrow ends up coming to
To
her.
her.
That's what it is. Um, and he's like, "Can I just stay here for a little while?"
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, like the talking plants, he's like, they never stop.
Mm-hmm.
The poor man, I mean, we know he's been by himself for 2 years. It's been 2 years
Mm-hmm.
since Lincoln passed. So he's got this like hermit life. We can see that he's a quieter,
Mm-hmm.
shy person. And so he's just completely overwhelmed. So she's continuing to research. He's kind of taking this deep breath, doing some cleaning around or whatever.
But also, just a point is that he could have gone back to his own
Yeah.
cottage by himself,
Yes.
and he didn't.
Yep.
He decided to come to her and
Mm-hmm.
be with her. So it's not necessarily he was like too overstimulated and wanted to be alone. He
Yeah,
could have been alone either in another greenhouse or in his own cottage, and he chose to come seek out Terlu, which I thought was a little heartwarming.
it was. But while they are there, Lottie comes pounding in
Mm-hmm.
because another greenhouse is dying.
And this is the first time we've actively seen
Mm-hmm.
one die. We've seen the aftermath,
Yes.
and we've heard Yarrow talk about it, how the temperatures fluctuate and all of these different things happen. But now we're rushing into it, and it
Mm-hmm.
happens to be the greenhouse that has the false sun,
Yes.
and the false sun has died.
Yeah. So now it's all hands on deck for a rescue mission because the sentient plants want
Yeah.
to help. And so he's got this small army that is taking out the potted plants. He sends Terlu to go get,
Mm-hmm.
little shovels and whatnot for them, trowels for them to use. So they're trying to get as many of the plants out of the greenhouse and into others that are, sustained so that they can save as many as possible. And Lottie's like, I can't hold a trowel. Like, tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So Lottie then becomes like army sergeant. She
Mm-hmm.
climbs to the top of the greenhouse and starts like yelling out orders like, hey, so
Mm-hmm.
and so, this person needs help. Hey, so and so, go over here.
Mm-hmm.
And just directing the troops. So, like, how quickly they fall into line to be able to help with this was awesome.
Well, and I loved the writing of this section because the way that the different plants, with how they grow,
Mm-hmm.
um, learn or like figure out how to help is so well done.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously very well thought through of what each plant and their capability could
Mm-hmm.
be, and which ones could hold a
Yes.
trowel and which ones couldn't, and like the ivy snaking around to try to pull things.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much thought and care put in to give these plants stay true to the plant that they are, but also give them character. I thought it was a really like masterful way of doing it.
Mhm.
But they are working quickly
Yep.
because things start to deteriorate fast. And my first question was, is there even enough room in
Right.
some of these other greenhouses to for these plants to go and to replant them? How are they going to
Mhm.
replant everything? But the sentient plants are so loyal. They are
Mhm.
trying their hardest. And Lottie has, you can tell how much trust Lottie has
Mhm.
in Terlu. Like, they've warned them, like, once it gets to a certain point, everybody has to get out,
Yeah.
no matter if there's plants left or not. And Dendi
Mm.
is really working hard to try to get this plant up, and it's getting cold. The greenhouse glass is frosting
Mhm.
over. It's really because Yarrow said they go sub-zero and
Yes.
then it'll like come back up, like the temperatures fluctuate.
Yeah.
And Terlu goes back to help him and Yarrow get this plant up,
Mhm.
and they're finally coming back out, but Dendi isn't moving.
I have to say, I have such a soft spot since Dendi has shown up for him that this scene nearly
Mm-hmm.
broke me because poor little Dendi, like, hey, philodendrons are very hardy plants. Thank goodness that we've got Yarrow that can reassure us and until they die on the
Mm-hmm.
page. But him almost dying here was
Mm-hmm.
not okay with me.
The whole thing is so sad to watch the greenhouse die and
Hmm.
to watch the reaction of the plants and how devastated they are and how hard Yarrow is working to
Yes.
try to save everything that he can. And it's just, it's so sad.
Hmm.
And if we had lost Dendi on top of it, I don't know that I could call this a cozy fantasy.
No.
I'd be like, no, this is a depressing fantasy. I am done. But he does wake back up.
Yeah.
Terlu says something about going to help with something, and he's like, "I'll help too,"
Yeah.
and so we know he's alive.
Yeah. And so then we've got, Yarrow having to pull out all the stops now because this greenhouse has unfortunately failed. They were roughly about half the plants were saved, but he now has to make sure that he gets them all repotted and into greenhouses that will be the right environment for them, and it's up to them basically to take root again and see if they actually like keep going. So he is literally up to his elbows in dirt,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that that is at least feasible. And the plants talk to him like, but you're just like one person, like we
Mm-hmm.
need more gardeners. And between them and Terlu, they're able to kind of convince him that Terlu can write a letter to his family and invite the family for a visit so that they could come and help. Um, but then that also sends Terlu into a spiral of the implications, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
she was statuified for
Mm-hmm.
having used magic. She's used magic multiple times here, and she doesn't know what his family's perception will be. Yes, they used to live here on an island where a sorcerer was at work, but that sorcerer was legally allowed to use magic under the
Mm-hmm.
laws, and she's not. So lots of moving parts with the simple writing of a letter.
Yeah, and she's really considering all of this, but also just thinking about how she got here. And she
Mm-hmm.
talks about her rebirth day, which I think
Yeah.
is adorable. She's like, I wish I knew what the timeline was, or like,
Yeah.
because she has to walk past where she woke up to
Mhm.
get down to the dock after she's written the letter.
Mhm.
And when she gets down to the dock, one of the plants is there.
Yes,
It's
Ree.
Ree. He's a myrtle, I think,
Yeah, a wax myrtle.
a wax myrtle, and he has since the minute he woke up has been talking about the sea. Um, and he wants to deliver the letter himself,
Mhm.
and so the next book, which just came out last month at the end of July, um, is Sea of Charms, and it does mention a plant on a boat. So I'm wondering, is that Ree? But we finally get to meet the sailor, the supply runner, Marin. I absolutely love Marin. She is hilarious, and she finally tells Terlu about the revolution
Yeah.
that's happened in Elysium. And she's like kind of giving her a little bit of it, like, yeah, there was a revolution, like the empire has fallen. And so that now has Terlu wondering, what are the laws? And oh my gosh, is everyone okay? She starts worrying about the library and the librarian, and then she's wondering, is that why I ended up here? Um, and along with Marin, Marin has another shipmate, but she also has a sea dragon or a sea serpent that is along with her. She's like, I saw a sea serpent. She's like, oh, that's Perry, my friend. So like, I can't wait to meet all of these characters.
Me
Hopefully
either.
in the next book. Um, but this encounter is what had me hoping that she would get her own book, and she does.
Yeah. So she agrees to take the letter, and I mean, she was paid to take it too. Like,
Yeah.
she was, Yarrow gave her money and everything. And sweet little Ree gets to be a new little shipmate with Marin for the journey. And I know, as we continue the story on, I know that Yarrow has a love for plants, but the way this man bakes and cooks, I would happily eat at his restaurant. Happily. Like, if something happened and Bells became like a thriving village where there was enough people one day to like
A
help take care
tourist
of yes,
destination.
I'm like, I need I need a restaurant where he's the main cook.
Well, I mean, his love for plants, I think, really reinforces his cooking ability, because that's what he uses in his cooking. He doesn't eat meat.
Yeah.
I think we found that pretty early in the book. And
Yeah.
so he I agree. I would love to eat one of the honey cakes that they keep talking about
Yes.
so much.
I feel like every time they mention something he's made, because I think it's in this chapter, it's like a tomato and zucchini bread or something like that. And I'm just like, oh.
Well, and the way Sarah Beth Durst talks about food is big in all of her books, and all of the cozy fantasies, I should say, I've read by her. I haven't read most of her other stuff. But the way that she talks about the food always makes me hungry. Like, I want to try these things. I would eat any of it.
Yeah.
But we see Terlu finally has her research team with Dendi. They're back together and working through notes and looking through things. And it's so cute because I feel like she always wanted that, and now she has Dendi, a plant that wants to do that with her.
Yeah.
And so they're trying. She's like, I think we should do some experimentation and try to figure out if we can do this big spell that it looks like Lakin used to set up the greenhouses.
Specifically to work on the glass.
Yes, and to see what works. And it's like, she's like, but it might be dangerous. And we're like, yeah, of course it's dangerous.
It's spell work.
You know? But they she's like, okay, first let's go take some things to the dragon. So they take honey butter to the dragons, and the dragons give her a ruby for it.
Yep.
Which is so cute. And then while she's delivering stuff to the dragons, Yarrow goes and gets ingredients to try out the spell. And when he shows up with a lot more than she expected. And she's like, what is all this? And he's like, well, you gave me a list of ingredients, but there are several varieties of some of those ingredients, so I brought them all.
I brought everything. So he's like laden. Like, imagine, you've packed for summer vacation for the entire family, and he's carrying everybody's luggage. Like, that's what I pictured here. Like, he was Ugh.
Well, and it's so smart, but that's the thing, like, she wouldn't know that he would, is that,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, I need this particular flower." Well, there's actually 5 different varieties or 12
Yeah.
different varieties of that flower, and if Lakin wasn't specific
Mhm.
because he knew what he wanted, then she would have never known.
Yeah.
Um,
So Terlu asks him to take her to a greenhouse that's really far away from the other ones, one of the failed ones, because she doesn't want what happened before with the sentient plants where it like
yeah.
took
Mhm,
over.
mhm,
Now, that one worked, so it was okay that that happened, but she's worried that if something were to go wrong with this, she doesn't want it to accidentally
mhm,
affect, one of the running greenhouses. So they go, pardon me, they go pretty far out into one of the first failed greenhouses
mhm.
to do basically these experiments with everything. And she did learn her lesson because
Yes.
when she, gets out the ingredients to be able to try it, she turns to Yarrow and she's like, and will you please close the lid to all of those other ingredients so that they're not exposed to the air?
Mhm,
And her very first trial of this, I thought that was just beautifully described.
mhm.
When she tries the spell the first time, the glass ends up looking like the summer night sky. Like it's
Mhm.
all like filled with stars and everything. And she's like, okay, that's weird. Why did that happen? And so she asked, like, is any of the ingredients that you gave me
Mhm.
based on the night, they bloom at night and everything? He's like,
Mhm.
well, yeah, I gave you a night primrose. And
Mhm.
so then they have to start doing different trials with
Yeah.
different primroses to try and figure out how and which ingredient is
Yeah.
the right one.
Mhm. And it produces like something eventually happens and she's like, "Okay," but then they walk up and touch the
Mm-hmm.
glass and it melts into water. It's like, What just happened?"
Mm-hmm.
And she's standing there like, "I don't know." Oh my gosh. Well, she freaks out because of all of the notes that she has, and she has to like run and grab them before they get water all over them. But this might take a while.
Yeah, it sure might. So they are continuing to work through ingredients and spells, and she asks Yarrow, "What's your favorite memory?"
Mhm.
And that was really sweet. She's like, "Well, you don't have to answer." And Terlu being Terlu, like she just
Mhm.
talks to fill up space
Yeah.
sometimes.
Mhm.
And she ends up telling the story, her favorite memory story.
Mhm.
And I really loved it. It's a story about an orange and
Mhm.
her grandma. And so basically, her grandmother, anytime she was proud of a family member for an
Yeah.
accomplishment or something, you would receive an orange
A very special orange, yeah.
from her. And her parents, Taylor's parents, wanted her to, become part of the family industry and learn, the economic side of things to have
Mhm.
purpose. And all Taylor wanted to do is keep her nose in a book.
Mhm.
Shocker,
Yeah.
librarian.
Mhm.
But she found an old fairy tale book
Mhm.
that was in a language from her grandmother's upbringing,
Mhm.
stories that her grandmother's father used to read to her. And she spent all summer learning the
Yeah.
language and how to read it, and then sat down and read one of the stories to her grandmother, a story that she hadn't heard in a really, really long time. And at the end of the story, her grandmother handed her one of those special oranges.
Mhm.
And I thought that was such a sweet
Yeah,
story.
the fact that really she learned her first dead language or her,
Mhm.
her first alternate language for her grandmother and
Mhm.
was rewarded so handsomely for it.
Yeah.
I think that really was formative for
Mhm.
her and like allowed her to pursue her dreams and in learning and being surrounded by books. And then Yarrow, like his memory, you can tell he really loves the plants.
Mhm.
He talks about how he learned like plant by plant individually
Mhm.
from his family members and that each one, like, after learning to care for each one, like,
Mhm.
he really wanted to learn about the next one. And so you can tell just what is important to
Mhm.
each of them and what they're passionate about from the stories that they share. And I really enjoyed that. And then, like, getting to see them interact in that
Mhm.
way was, I felt like, a really good way to do relationship building
Mhm.
that sometimes you miss in fantasies like this.
Yeah. I really loved it because you can see the relationship and the romance, at least on Terlu's end, kind of
Mhm.
building as she just spends more genuine time with Yarrow.
Mhm.
And some of that time is just spent in silence too. They're not always
Mhm.
talking because she respects that that's something that he needs. And I just really love how this is like their bond is slowly growing through the simple things. And then Terlu gets to tell us a little bit about her plan here
Mhm.
because she was like, okay, I think the spell's too big for me.
Yeah.
What happens if I shrink it down? Like I dissect this bigger one and I
Mhm.
focus instead of trying to fix the entirety of the greenhouse's environment at once. And I try to fix one pane of glass. Just one pane of glass instead of all of it all at one time.
Mhm.
Um, so now, is that going to take me longer? Absolutely, but it might be
Yeah.
more feasible. And so she starts whittling away at figuring out what specific parts of the bigger spell that she will need in order to make it work.
Yeah, she tries to break it down into its smaller parts because
Mhm.
obviously he did this all at once, but each section of the cell or of the spell has its own component
Mhm.
and what its own function as to what it does. And so she's like, well, maybe if I can get the glass fixing first, and then maybe we'll figure out the next piece, which could be the environment, it could be some type of protection spell. We'll just go from there. If I can get one little piece to get started, which
Mhm.
makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
breaking a problem down into its smaller steps always seems to make it easier. I don't know for me if it does for you, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
But she's talking about this. They're like, okay, it's time for bed, and they're both still staying in his cottage, and she gets up in the middle of the night, and then the old oops, I accidentally crawled into the wrong bed excuse happens, and she wakes up and she's actually in bed with Yarrow. He has his arm around her and she's laying there just overthinking everything. And
Everything.
I was like, girl, I overthink everything too. It's fine.
In
But
true Terlu fashion,
yeah,
though.
yeah, I mean, it worked out.
Yep, sure did. Because smoochy, smoochy.
He was like, he wakes up and was like, "You're in my bed," and she's like, "Yeah, it
Mhm.
was a mistake." And he's like, "Oh, it was a mistake." She's like, "A happy mistake." It was very cute.
It was adorable. Um, but then they're interrupted by Lottie. It's always Lottie at the door. It's always Lottie at the door
Mhm.
because she's got an emergency. And so Yarrow gets like, okay, another greenhouse is dying. Like, let's
Mhm.
go. And she's like, no, 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 no. It's the plants. They won't stop singing. And he's like, well, they're supposed to sing. And she goes, no, 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 no. The talking ones are singing and they're horrible. Help.
She's Lottie is just a girly pop. Like, she thinks that everything that is distressing her
Yes.
is an emergency, and the drama in that one is huge.
I
But
love
they
it.
kind of like look at each other, and Lottie is like, "Ooh, did I miss something? Tell me everything." Like, she wants to know all the details, and they definitely need to talk. But um, they get themselves together and decide that they're going to try to fix some
Yeah.
glass. And Terlu says, well, maybe for this one, we make a paste
Mhm.
out of the ingredients and we can put that on things. And one quote I wrote down that she kind of talked about how magic is kind of viewed in this world, and she says coaxing the ineffable spirit of the world's magical energy into a chosen path. Like that's how magic
Mm.
functions. And I thought that was like a good way of understanding how they view magic. It's not
Mhm.
like, in certain places it's energy you feel or the force or something
Mhm.
like that. This is how it's working for them.
Yeah. So with the paste, Lottie's like, can I help? Please, like,
Mhm.
don't make me go back to these plants. And so she allows Lottie to come and help put the paste on one of the glass panes. And she, uses the words for the broken down spell that she's put together from Lakin's larger one and finds that the spell works.
Mhm.
But it's going to take a lot of time because she does it over and over and over and
Mhm.
over and over again. She ends up going hoarse. She's exhausted. It's so much
Yeah.
work. And, you know, yes, she sent this letter for, help from Yarrow's family, but it's been a little bit and they haven't heard a response. And so it's kind of becoming this like daunting feeling like this is how much work is going into just getting one greenhouse, just the glass fixed. And we
Mhm.
know there's almost 200 greenhouses that have failed, almost
Mhm.
half of these have failed. So the time it's going to take for me to fix these, how many more are going to fail in the meantime? So I think, gosh, the overwhelming feeling that would be in that moment. Like, we've got to come up with a
Yeah.
backup plan.
Well, even thinking about like even trying to teach somebody else, we find out with her experimentation that pronunciation is even
Hmm.
very important. It's not just saying the words, it's saying them correctly.
Yeah.
And so it would take a lot to even train somebody else and make sure that they were saying the right thing to get the right
Hmm.
result. And she is so exhausted, and you kind of understand why Lakin did things all at once,
Yeah.
because having to do the same thing over and over again is just
Hmm.
taking a lot out of her. And the plants, they walk in to see the other plants and they are singing and it is bad.
It's bad.
Risa the ivy, it really sounds like a snake, and Zendaya is super dramatic. Like it's
Hmm.
so fun every time we see them. And they're like, "But we'll help. We
Hmm.
would love to help you." And she's still like worried about the empire, even though she heard that it fell. Like she's still worried about getting in trouble,
Hmm.
and then she's worried about getting the plants in
Yeah.
trouble. But it makes sense that they all like just jump in because of the way that they've shown themselves to be. They're very loyal and very community oriented, and so they're
Hmm.
ready to, yeah, we can do that. We can figure out how to how each of us can help so that this can move faster.
Yeah, and like we saw before, when they were trying to save the plants from the
Mhm.
greenhouse, they like organize into these little crews. Some of
Mhm.
them start gathering ingredients, while others are, preparing the ingredients to make the
Mhm.
paste, while others are being taught how to properly say the spell, while others are using the prepared paste to start putting it on different parts of the glass panes. So it's like this whole big thing. So now they've got this whole kind of like construction line going,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And Terlu is able to step away to
Mhm.
start focusing on another portion of the spell. And she decided that the next part that she would like to work on is the protection piece of it.
Yeah.
And like before, we've got to experiment, and some interesting things happen.
Well, she's very worried, and she's
Yes.
like, I don't know if we should do this and all this stuff. And then honestly, Yarrow does the last thing he probably should have done, and he kisses her. Not that that's bad, it's that she is so frazzled
Yes.
afterwards. She's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know
Yes.
what to do with my hands." Like it's so funny. Um it's like you probably should have waited until some spells were cast,
Yeah.
my dude,
Yeah.
but they try initially and
Hmm.
it forms bubbles.
Yes.
And she's like,
How
what happened?
how did I
I
get
don't
bubbles?
understand what this is doing, but they seem to be getting closer. They pop these bubbles, and then she's like, well, maybe if we make this little change, something will work. And then they end up with a big bubble around them.
Yep.
And they're trying to, they realize this is an issue. And Terlu starts like, just like talking,
Mhm.
talking.
Mhm.
And she says
Yes.
something that like really hurts me inside. She says, "I'm too sensitive."
Well, hold on, back up. Before she says the I'm too sensitive part, like while she's talking and
Mhm.
everything, Yarrow's just kind of like staring at her, like taking in everything she
Mhm.
said. And the part that got me was he says he asks her, "Who hurt you?"
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And she goes, well, nobody really, like in her head, she's going, nobody's really ever done that. Like, I haven't had a relationship that's
Mhm.
stunted, like, that's hurt me and all these other things. And that's when she said that, I'm too sensitive. And
Mhm.
that response to the who hurt you was just as heavy.
And he comes back to her with, pain doesn't require approval.
Oh.
And it's so true, and I think it really like shakes something in her.
Yeah.
It makes her have a realization. Um and again, he seems to find the right thing to say at the right time to
Hmm.
really help her along.
Yeah.
And I just like, I appreciated that.
Yeah, me too. Once again, another simple scene that shows a lot of their connection
Mhm.
growing. But of course, we are having this cute moment, and in pops Lottie.
Lottie.
There's people on the island. There's people on the island. Oh dear.
So now we can safely assume at least someone has responded
Yeah.
to their request, to their
Mm-hmm.
letter. And they are like, oh, okay. So they end up heading down to the docks,
Yeah.
but all of the sentient plants want to go,
Yep.
and they all end up piling on Terlu.
I love that they
And
picked Terlu.
and she is like covered in plants trying to hustle down there, and I can only like, I need fan art of this,
Yes.
of her and her stout body with her lavender skin and her curls and all of these plants just piled on top of her
In
as
her
she's
pocket, like.
running, you know. And she's like, well, maybe you guys can go to the tower
Mm-hmm.
and we'll let you know.
Yeah.
So the plants do leave and they do go to Lakin's tower, but they end up down at the dock, and his whole family
Yep.
is getting off the boat.
Yep.
And they don't quite make it all the way down there yet. And
Mm-mm.
he's just like, yeah, that's my whole family. And he does not seem happy about it.
No, his words, it looks like an invasion.
But they need the help. So this
Yes.
should be a good thing, right? And my only assumption is that he must be mad about how they left.
Yeah.
And he probably feels like this is his sanctuary now,
Mm-hmm.
and he's done, kind of like the little
Yeah.
red hen, like
Yeah.
he's done all of this work to keep it going, and now you're going to come back. He didn't expect all of them, and he expected a letter. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
he expected somebody to write back saying, sure, we'll come in a couple months.
Yeah. There's a couple of key things that happened as they're making their way here that kind of set with me is that, he's upset and Terry was like, well, they left because, Lakin made them. They didn't have any other choice. And his response to that is, well, everyone has a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some hard feelings
Mm-hmm.
there. So clearly, maybe they didn't part on the best of terms
Yeah.
as they were sent away. And like you said, he was expecting some sort of, letter back or whatever. And he says in here, if they had cared about me, they would have written and
Mm-hmm.
said, they would have visited before now. They wouldn't have waited until um, and so he kind of like bucks up and walks down there with her. And the amount of people that are coming out of this small boat, um, all I can think is Marin's boat has to be enchanted in some sort of way
Mm-hmm.
because there's no way.
And I think it's interesting, like, obviously Terlu's the social one, and she goes down and says, "Welcome to Beld." And I'm thinking that has to be very weird for them
Yes.
because this was their home first, and now here's some random woman
Mhm.
welcoming them back to the island. But
Mhm.
we get to see Marin again, and I love her. And she's like, "Yep, here they are." Like,
Yep.
there was a lot of people, and she like even mentions one guy, one of the family members. He's like, "I'll help clean that up." She's like,
Mm.
"Stay on like dry land, sir. Just stay there.
Yeah,
We'll take
she's like,
care of
"I
it."
didn't know that much could come out of a person."
And so that's that. Like, I just really love her. We also see when she came the first time, it was
Mhm.
just her and the sea serpent, and this time she seems to have a companion. I'm already sorry. I am in like, what is Sea of Charms going to do to me mode. So I'm like, is that the guy from the next book? Anyway, but I can't imagine how Yarrow must be feeling at this point.
Yeah.
One, he was already overwhelmed by the sentient plants. Two, there's obviously some type of animosity
Mhm.
between him and these family members that have
Mhm.
come back.
Mhm.
And like he said, he feels like this is an invasion. So there feels like there's a lot of family drama to
Yeah.
unpack, and he does not seem like he's ready to talk to them.
No, not at all.
And also, while they're unloading, furniture is being unloaded.
Uh-huh.
And so it seems like they aren't necessarily here for a visit.
Nope.
They seem to be here to stay, which we hear that where they were, there was the revolution.
Mhm.
So they were probably looking for a place to go. And also, it's not just his family. It seems like there are some additional people that have been brought with them.
Yeah. So I want to say it's Rowan and her wife. So Rowan is Yarrow's sister
Mm-hmm.
and her wife. They kind of give us a lot of this information. And the everybody starts introducing themselves to Terlu. And basically like saying like this, we're home, this is where we belong, like we're gonna be ready to start fixing up all of the cottages. And Terlu's like, well, in the meantime, you can stay in the tower.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out a little bit more detail about the revolution itself in the capital.
Mm-hmm.
We find out that the emperor was killed,
Mm-hmm.
that half of Elysium has been burned to the ground, including the library, which you can
Yes.
imagine Terlu's like absolute dread of a response there, right? Like, oh my gosh, the library's been burned down. What's happened to Righteous Velk? What about the
Mm-hmm.
books? And so when they received the letter that Terlu wrote for Yarrow, they thought it was because he knew about all of this and he was
Mm-hmm.
writing them to like basically like save them, that he knew
Mm-hmm.
all this information. He was offering them a home, a way to get out of, very bad circumstances. And so they also brought some other refugees, some neighbors and close family friends with them. And this is going to be a major adjustment for like basically everybody involved. Let's
Mm-hmm.
be honest.
Well, and before Marin leaves again, once Terlu hears about the library burning
Yeah.
down, she runs to the
Yes.
dock and she's like, "I will give you this ruby." Remember, the dragon gave her the ruby,
Hmm.
and she's like, "If you will get word to Righteous
Yeah.
Velk and like find her and let me know what her whereabouts are,
Hmm.
and thank her for me because she's very worried about it." And originally, Marin was not going to go back to
Mm-mm.
Elysium. Even her second mate, her other sailor, is like, "No, we're not going back there." And she's holding up this ruby, going, "Well, plans change."
Yep, sure do.
And so she does agree.
Yeah.
But then Terlu, like, they get them to the tower, but Terlu seems to be almost upset
Hmm.
that Yarrow hasn't told her anything about his family or their secrets, or why they haven't um like talked about this. And I'm
Hmm.
like, girl, one, he seems to be like a very private
Yes.
person. He very much isolated himself, and you've only known each other for a few weeks,
Yeah.
maybe. Like, he doesn't seem like the type of person that's just going to come out and say, "Yeah, I have
Hmm.
this bad relationship with my family." Like, she seems like kind of shocked or like a little bit upset that he hasn't, she
Yeah.
doesn't know why there's this bad blood and he won't talk to them.
Yeah. So Terlu does have a little bit of a conversation with Birch, Yarrow's dad, a small one, because Birch tried to approach Yarrow, and said like, "Hey, like, hi, how are you, son? Like, it's so good to be back." And Yarrow like just brushes him off,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Oh, I hope he'd forgiven me by now,"
Mhm.
which kind of caught me off guard because when Yarrow disclosed his dad leaving and him being the last one on the island, it was because his dad was sick. He had a heart condition that he needed to be treated for,
Mhm.
that couldn't be treated on the island.
Mhm.
And so when when Terlu leads them back to the tower to try to get them settled in a little bit, um, it's divulged to her that they didn't write back. They were kind of like vetoed out of it by the dad, because some of the family members did want to write to him, because he was like, well, if he found out that I was coming, I was worried that he'd rescind the invitation.
Mhm.
Um, and Birch kind of tells us that he was a little forceful with Yarrow and was trying to make him leave, with him or shortly
Mhm.
after him because he didn't think that there was going to be a future on the island, and said they parted with some not so kind words.
Yeah, he says he tried to force him
Mm-hmm.
to go with him, and if there's anything we've learned about Yarrow to this point in the book, it's how much he cares for the plants
Yeah.
and how much the greenhouses really mean to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was definitely the wrong move. And I understand why Yarrow was angry. He he this is his home and
Mm-hmm.
this is his passion. So you telling him in harsh words that there's no future here is obviously going to make him angry. And to me, I'm already thinking to myself, he's not going to like them in his greenhouses.
No.
No matter, and them, you would think probably that they are like, "Oh, this is our home. Like we
Mm.
know how to do everything." And Yarrow's been doing this by himself
So
for
yeah.
2 years and probably has a particular way of doing things. And then all of these people come in and are, you know, potentially doing things that might still work but
Yeah.
aren't his way.
Yeah.
Another thing that I thought was really heartwarming was the reunion between the gardeners and the sentient plants at the tower.
Yes.
They were really happy. When they first woke up, some of the plants had asked
Mm-hmm.
about some of the gardeners, and obviously they weren't there, but now a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them have returned.
Yeah. The other thing that made me chuckle in this part too is that with so many new people, Tara Lou's having a hard time remembering people's names.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has made correlations with different family members to different animals. So, like the squirrely looking family member, she remembers as so and so, or the one that
Mm-hmm.
looks more like an emu or something like that. And I chuckled so hard
Yeah.
because I was like, that's clever. But Tara Lou starts making her way back to go check in on Yarrow
Mm.
and starts kind of contemplating, okay, like what kind of laws have changed? Like she's having this
Yeah.
internal, thought process. You know, is the imperial investigators still a thing? What does the world look like now? We've been
Mm-hmm.
isolated on this island.
Well, and she's been in statue form for 6 years before that. So,
Yes. Yeah. And when she gets to Yarrow, she's kind of expressing a little bit of this, and she's really worried about continuing to work on the spells
hmm,
because she's not sure how the others are going to, react. Like not just his family, but remember, neighbors and close family friends have been brought.
yep.
So she's really worried about that. And he's like, "Don't worry, like nobody's going to turn you in, and if anything happens, like I'm going with you. Like they'll
Hmm.
have to take me too." He says they'd have to make a double pedestal for the both of us because I won't let go.
Yeah. It's so cute.
Why is he so cute? Um, but we also know that, they both kind of have like family problems because Terry Lou still hasn't reached out to her family to let
Hmm.
them know that like, A, she's alive
And
and
where she is.
where she is, that she's well, et cetera, et cetera. But Yarrow is basically like, I can trust me, I know this place. I will avoid my family for as long as I want. Like
Hmm.
I do not want to talk to them. And so Terlu, sweet Terlu, probably not the healthiest choice, but offers to be the messenger between
Yeah.
Yarrow and his
Mhm.
family. Um, and it just, yeah, I just love it. Um, and they're kind of having that conversation. He's like, "You do that for me?"
Mhm.
And it's just, I don't know, the two of them. I wrote down part of their conversation because it shows you, as quiet as Yarrow is, he's very observant. He takes a
Mhm.
lot in. And so he's speaking to Terlu, although she's worried, she's still willing to help and
Mhm.
everything. And he says, "You don't let anything dim your light. You
Mhm.
were sentenced to a fate worse than death. You lost everything, unfairly punished. You're terrified it will happen again, and yet you still open your arms to everyone. How?"
Mhm.
And I absolutely love that he is seeing that much of her.
Yeah.
And you can tell that he's really taking it in and wanting to learn from
Mhm.
her and kind of like shape a little bit. Um, but then we also see that Terlu's doing the same thing
Yes.
about him,
Mhm.
because as much as she loves to talk and loves to be surrounded by people, she also knows that Yara needs quiet. And so she just gives him the quiet after they have
Mhm.
their conversation, and they're in the cottage, or
The
the
cottage.
cottage. They're in his cottage, and he's baking, she's
Mhm.
looking through the research, and they're just this like easy cohesiveness. They haven't known each other for very long, but they understand each other so well.
Well, and he even says that to her. He's like, "Is everything okay? You're quiet." And she's like, "Oh, I thought you just need the silence."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, basically like, "I do. Thank you."
Yeah.
And she they just coexist. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that really, shows their relationship growing.
Yeah.
During that conversation too, she also points out like, these are your greenhouses. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, they're like Lakin's greenhouses. And it's like, no, you've been caring for them
Mm-hmm.
by yourself for 2 years. These are your greenhouses. And
Mm-hmm.
so while he's building her confidence about her like sorcery and her use of magic, she's also
Mm-hmm.
trying to make him remember that and like take ownership that these are his greenhouses
Mm-hmm.
and they should be run how he wants them to be run, and
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, they're your passion, you should have the say.
Yeah. But that wraps us up for this episode. It brings us to the end of chapter 23.
Mhm.
And honestly, um, you know, for a cozy fantasy, a lot of stuff is happening in this
Mhm.
little book. And one of the things that I mean, I've said it already, I'm loving the most is this Terlu and Yarrow.
Oh, yeah.
Their interactions, their relationship building is great. And I'm interested to see how it continues to develop through the end of the book, now that there are so
Mhm.
many people on the island, because
Yeah.
that's going to add some probably comical moments, maybe some awkward
Mhm.
moments, maybe some really tense moments. Like, but I'm here for all of it.
I think a lot of what I love about Sarah Beth Durst's writing, especially in this Spell Shop series, is her character interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of my favorite things in this so far, alongside Terlu and Yarrow's um, relationship building, is this view of the sentient plants and
Mm-hmm.
their little community.
Yeah.
That was a big part of this section, and getting to see
Mm-hmm.
all of the different characters within that and the functions that they play and the comedy that they
Mm-hmm.
bring. And really, we didn't move the saving of the greenhouses too much in
Mm-hmm.
this. We decoded,
Yep.
so we did finally get to a place where we could figure out what the spells are saying.
Yes.
There's been a couple experiments done, and now we realize that we need to break it down into smaller pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So now I feel like we have the team of gardeners to
Yep.
help. We have like some foundational things and some pieces together to move forward. So I cannot wait for the third section in our
Mm-hmm.
third episode to see how and if they're going to save the
Yep.
greenhouses. I mean, it's a cozy fantasy, so I'm assuming some kind of happy ending. It may not be the one we expect, is coming, and to see how the plants and the gardeners.
Hmm.
I hope that Yarrow and his family can
Yes.
reconcile,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and hopefully, maybe we'll get to see Terlu's family.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm hoping is that Marin pops back up to give us a little bit more information about the world because of the revolution.
Mhm.
Because I think that's the only way that Terlu's unsettled mind will ease up a little
Yeah.
bit
Mhm.
about things. And side note to Sarah Beth Durst, if you would like to write a recipe book based on Yarrow's cooking from from here, I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
I believe um, at the end of Spell Shop, I think there is a jam
Yes.
recipe. Um, so, I mean, I feel like there might be a possibility.
Just
Just an
saying.
idea.
Just an idea.
Anyway, thank you for joining us for episode 2. Join us next time where
Yeah.
we will be jumping into chapters 24 through 35.
Mhm.
And we hope to see you then.